Hi everybody, Laura here for Simon Says Stamp. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a fun little under the sea project to share with you. Going to be featuring this Leafy frame die, but before I die cut that, I have a panel of some Nina Solar White cardstock. I'm doing a little ink blending using 3 different Distress Oxide inks in the green shade. So I'm starting with Twisted Citron, and I went all around the perimeter. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit of crushed olive and mowed lawn. So here and there, just working it, going round and round. I'm not trying to be perfect. It's actually a little bit splotchy, but that's okay because I'm going to end up die cutting this with the Leafy frame die, and it's going to act as my under the sea, seaweed, kelp, seagrass type of a thing. So before I die cut it, I'm going to flick on some flicks of water, which I just like to do all the time. I love flicking on the flicks, but it also works great for an under the sea type of a vibe. So here's the Leafy frame. Going to die cut that right in. I do have a metal shim that I put underneath. It really does help to get a nice clean cut. So I run that through the Big Shot, and there you have instant seaweed. Now, I know it's not really seaweed, but just use your imagination. So I'm taking my little retractable needle tool, popping out all the innards. Now, here's my card base, and this is going to be what shows through the seaweed. So it's got to be like the ocean or the ocean floor or just, water. So I'm starting with some cracked pistachio, little mermaid lagoon, and on the bottom, going heavy-handed with the good old blueprint sketch. And I did go heavy-handed with the blueprint sketch. Like, I laid it on thick, and then I blended that into the mermaid lagoon, and I blended that into the blueprint sketch. And I say it every time, but mostly it's because I like to do the New York accent. The Distress Oxide inks, they blend like butter. Like walk the dog, have a cup of coffee, butter. And then you got to flick on the flicks if you want to have an under the sea look. You just have to flick the flicks. You sop that up with a dry paper towel, and there you have it. Now, picture book crab, picture book fish. These are new picture books from the Friendly Frolic release. I love them. Usually when I do the picture books, I like to do solid color cardstock, but this time I thought I'd show you a variation of just die cutting them on white cardstock, adding the color with your medium of choice, which I'm going to be using Copics. But you could use your Zig clean color markers, you could use watercolor, you could use color pencil, you get the idea. So what I like to do is make a little backing for my picture book dies. That way I can adhere all the pieces to the backing, and then that allows me to pop up my picture book animal to add dimension. Otherwise, you have to adhere it flat onto the card base, which is fine. I just like to pop mine up. So I always add a bunch of tape runner to the base, and then you simply just adhere all the pieces. Once I get these picture book dies, all the parts adhered together, gonna start coloring, starting with the crab, which was easy peasy because he's just red. I love that, and I knew that the red would be a fantastic contrast to the colors that I have going on. So we've got the green leafy frame algae, you've got the blue ocean under the sea, and then you've got this great bright red crab. So you can see my marker caps there, exactly what colors I used. I sped this up. Nothing fancy schmancy. I keep it simple. Just trying to make this a bright red gradient, fantastic little crab. I'm going to end up adding some googly eyes to him. And then for the fish, again, I'm thinking what can contrast with my background so that it really pops. So I'm adding some yellow. I'm also going to add a little stripe of orange, and then after that I'll add a little bit of stripe of blue. Not too much blue because I don't want the fish to get lost in my under the sea blue scene. I got to make sure that it continues to contrast, but I was just feeling a blue stripe coming on. I'm not really sure if a fish like this actually exists, and normally I would Google fish cartoon to get my ideas. This time I didn't. I just winged it. Now I'm going to emboss the sentiment, rubbing that down with a magic powder bag. This is the Uplifting Thoughts stamp set. It's an older one, but I just really like the message of it, and it was perfectly sized to go right in the center. So I'm inking that up with Versamark ink, pouring on some Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder, and then I'll heat that with a heat gun. I like this straight up, bold, classic font on that. Now I'm cutting some really thin slivers of foam tape so that I can pop up my leafy frame. And I did have to trim some seriously thin strips of foam tape to fit behind the leafy frame. But I love the dimension and I like the shadow that it makes behind the leaves. You could easily skip this step and just adhere it straight to the card base. I think it would look equally as fantastic, but I just like the dimension. That way you could also slide your little picture book animals behind the leaves. I do have some foam tape behind the crab, as well as some foam tape behind the fish. And then I went ahead and just trimmed a couple of leaves so that my fish wasn't too hidden. I needed him to pop out just a little bit more. And then for fun, I'm adding a couple of googly eyes to the crab. Also went ahead and added a googly eye to the fish. And then to finish it off, I just added a few sequins in coordinating colors. These are from the Simon Says Stamp Dynamite, Chameleon, and Hello Summer sequin mixes by Simon Says Stamp. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.